At 2:07 in the morning, a text message ended a 23-year marriage in less than 15 words. I ran away with your best friend. We're never coming back. There was a photo attached. Champagne, a beach in Cancun. Her husband's arm around her best friend of 20 years. She didn't cry. She didn't call him. She typed back two words, good luck, and then, before the sun came up, she made sure he could never come home again. By the time he tried to fly back 3 days later, his credit cards didn't work, the locks didn't turn, and a folder of evidence was already sitting on a lawyer's desk with his name on it. This is the story of Olivia Bennet and the quiet, methodical revenge that turned a betrayal into a reckoning. If you've ever been blindsided by someone you trusted completely, a partner, a friend, someone who was supposed to have your back, this story is going to feel personal. Stick around, because what Olivia did in the hours after that text message is one of the calmest, most devastating acts of justice you'll ever hear. If stories like this hit different for you, hit subscribe, tap that like button, and let's get into it. Olivia Bennet was 45 years old, and for most of those years, she had been the person other people called when their lives fell apart on paper. As a senior accountant for a regional logistics company outside Columbus, Ohio, she spent her days untangling other people's financial disasters, missing invoices, mismatched ledgers, businesses hemorrhaging money because nobody had bothered to look closely enough. She was good at it. She was good at it because she believed, fundamentally, in one simple rule: numbers don't lie. People, she would later understand, are a different story entirely. The kind of street where kids still rode bikes until the streetlights came on and neighbors waved from their porches without needing to know each other's last names. In autumn, the maple trees lining the road turned the whole street a soft, burning orange. It wasn't a wealthy neighborhood. It didn't need to be. It was peaceful. And Olivia had made sure of that peace herself, every mortgage payment made on time, every bill accounted for, because that was who she was. The one who made sure things worked. What most people on that street didn't know, what even some of her closest family had forgotten over the years, was that the house was hers. Only hers. Her grandmother had helped her buy it 6 months before she married Ethan. When he moved in after the wedding, they built a life inside those walls together. They refinished the hardwood floors. They painted the nursery that never got used the way they'd planned. Neither did the investment accounts her father left her. Those decisions, made quietly, made early, made almost as an afterthought, would end up being the only thing standing between Olivia and complete ruin. Ethan Bennet was 48, charming in the specific way that made people forgive him before they'd even decided he needed forgiving. She told herself that was what marriage meant. You carry each. She would spend the rest of her life understanding exactly how wrong that belief had been. Then there was Rachel Brooks. If Ethan was the man Olivia built a home with, Rachel was the woman Olivia built a life with. They'd met in college, survived terrible apartments, brutal professors, broken hearts, and each other's weddings. Rachel had reminded Ethan about their anniversary when he forgot. Rachel wasn't just family. She was safer than family. That's exactly why what came next didn't just break Olivia's heart. It broke something she thought was unbreakable. It was a Tuesday, 2:07 in the morning. Olivia's phone lit up the dark bedroom with a sound she'd heard 1,000 times before, but this time it would be the last. Ordinary sound she heard before her entire life rearranged itself. 15 words. No warning. No slow unraveling she could have seen coming. I ran away with your best friend. We're never coming back. Attached to the message was a photograph. Ethan and Rachel, barefoot on a beach in Cancun. Champagne glasses raised toward the camera like they'd just won something. Ethan was smiling wider than Olivia had seen him smile in years, a detail that would come back to haunt her later because she would ask herself again and again how long that smile had been missing from their marriage before she noticed its absence. Rachel leaned into him, wearing a necklace Olivia herself had given her for her 45th birthday. Olivia didn't scream. She lay there in the dark, staring at two words forming in her mind, and then she typed them. "Good luck," she sent it. Then she set the phone down on the nightstand, and something in her went very, very still. This is the part that matters, the part that separates Olivia's story from 1,000 others like it. Instead, something cold and clear settled over her. The same feeling she got at work when a client's books were bleeding money and everyone around her was panicking except her. Panic later. Evidence first. She looked at the photograph one more time. Not because she was hoping it was fake. Because she was an accountant, and accountants notice details. The hotel bracelet on Ethan's wrist. The expensive sunglasses pushed up on Rachel's head. The private boat visible behind them in the water. None of it, she knew instantly, had been paid for with money either of them actually had. She knew exactly how much sat in Ethan's business account. She knew which cards he carried. And she knew, with a sinking certainty, exactly which of her cards had ever been in his hands and Rachel's. She opened her banking app. 3 supplementary cards sat beneath her primary account. Hers, Ethan's, and one for Rachel, an emergency card from years earlier, after Rachel's wallet had been stolen overseas. Rachel had returned it. Or so Olivia had believed. She'd simply forgotten to remove the authorization, because why would she ever need to? She opened the transaction history. Luxury resort dining, a private yacht charter, spa, thousands of dollars, charge after charge after charge, all funded by her accounts, spent by the two people who'd just told her, from a beach, that they were never coming back. Her pulse didn't race. It slowed. And that, more than anything, frightened her, because Olivia had learned, over 20 years of marriage, that when she went this calm, she made permanent decisions. She picked up the phone and called the credit card company. "I need to cancel every supplementary card. Immediately." "May I ask why?" "Because the authorized users no longer have my authorization." 5 minutes later, the cards were dead. Every one of them. Somewhere in Cancun, two people were about to find out that Paradise had a credit limit of 0. Next came the online banking passwords, security questions, two-factor authentication, wire transfer permissions. She changed every single one, methodically, the same way she'd untangle a client's books at 3 in the afternoon. Searched for a 24-hour locksmith. "You need every lock changed tonight. Every single one." Yes. An hour later, a gray pickup truck pulled into her driveway. The locksmith looked to be around 60. Tired eyes, rough hands. "No, asterisk," Olivia answered honestly. Asterisk, but it will be. He never asked another question. For nearly 2 hours, the sound of drills echoed. Through the sleeping street, front door, garage entry, back patio, basement entrance. Every old lock disappeared into a bucket by his truck. Every new key landed in her palm. "You want extras?" "No. I don't think I'll be trusting many people after tonight." He nodded, the kind of understanding that only comes from watching too many marriages end on his job site. When he drove away, Olivia walked through the house alone. Nothing looked different. The photographs still hung on the walls. Rachel's favorite coffee mug still waited in the kitchen cabinet from 100 nights of football season. And yet the house felt different. Lighter. As if, for the first time in 23 years, it finally belonged entirely to the name on its deed. She slept nearly 6 hours straight. She hadn't expected that. At 7:18 the next morning, violent pounding rattled her front door. Not a knock, pounding, 3 heavy blows, then another. For one brief second, Olivia assumed it was Ethan. Discovering his cards no longer worked, coming home angry or coming home begging, maybe both. She looked through the peephole instead and found 2 uniformed police officers on her porch. Officer Daniels older, and Officer Ruiz younger. Neither looked angry. Both looked serious. "Mrs. Bennett, we've received a complaint from your husband. We need to ask you a few questions." Olivia let them in. Their eyes swept the entryway. The fresh deadbolt, the faint smell of sawdust the locksmith had left behind. Neither commented. Sitting in her living room, bathed in morning light on hardwood floors, she and Ethan had refinished together 15 years earlier. Officer Daniels explained. Ethan claimed she'd locked him out of the marital residence, frozen his access to family finances, and illegally seized control of jointly owned assets. I see, Olivia said calmly. You don't seem surprised. Officer Ruiz noted. I'm not. She walked into her home office and returned with 3 folders from a filing cabinet organized with the same precision she brought to every client's books. Property deed, investment records, beneficiary documents. The house purchased 6 months before the marriage. Never reached. The credit card's hers, with Ethan and Rachel as authorized users only. Officer Daniels closed the final folder slowly. Mrs. Bennett, may I ask what happened? Without a word, Olivia handed over her phone, opened to the message Ethan had sent 8 hours earlier. Both officers read it in silence. The photograph lingered on the screen far longer than either of them seemed comfortable with. So he sent you this at 2 a.m., Officer Ruiz said, something between disbelief and second-hand embarrassment in his voice. I understand why you changed the locks, officer. Daniels said. Then, almost gently, did he ever threaten you? Then, why change every lock instead of just asking him not to come home? Olivia looked toward the door. Because he already told me he wasn't coming home. Fair point. It was in that same conversation, while showing the officers her account activity to prove she hadn't touched a cent that wasn't hers, that Olivia found something she hadn't been looking for, a transfer, $8,000, unknown. Recipient, 3 weeks earlier, then another, $6,000, then $4,500. Different dates, different amounts, all approved electronically, all from her account. I don't remember authorizing this. The numbers kept climbing as she filtered the transactions. $10,000, $20,000, $32,000, nearly $40,000 gone. Not overnight, but bled out quietly over almost 11 months, hidden inside routine business reimbursements she'd trusted without a second glance. Her breathing stayed steady. Years of accounting had trained her for exactly this moment. Panic later. Evidence first. I think my husband has been stealing from me, she said quietly. Officer Daniels closed his notebook. I agree. The moment the officers left, Olivia called the only person she trusted to make sense of what she'd just found, Lauren Hayes, the sharpest financial litigation attorney she'd ever worked. There was a long pause. Don't touch another single document. Lauren arrived that afternoon with nothing but a briefcase and a legal pad, and for the next 3 hours, the 2 women worked through Olivia's dining room table, now buried. What emerged wasn't a spontaneous affair. It was infrastructure. Piece by piece, a second life came into focus, a life quietly financed, month after month, with Olivia's own money, while she believed she was simply covering her struggling husband's business. Expenses. It isn't rented under Ethan's name. Olivia's chest tightened before she even asked. Rachel. The lease belongs to Vanessa Rachel Brooks. So, I've been paying her rent. When they pulled the electronic authorization logs for the largest transfers, the IP addresses attached to each approval didn't come from Olivia's home. They came from Ethan's. Office? You think he forged my authorization? Olivia asked. I think, Lauren said carefully. He intentionally created the appearance that you approved transfers you never saw, and buried inside an old external hard drive, one Ethan himself had insisted Olivia use years earlier, so business paperwork would be easier while she traveled. They found a folder of contracts and loan applications carrying what looked like Olivia's electronic signature, documents she had never seen. Documents she had never signed. Olivia, Lauren said, her voice changing. This isn't just unauthorized spending anymore. I believe your husband used your signature on financial documents without your knowledge. Before she left that night, Lauren gave Olivia one final piece of advice. People who think they've gotten away with everything almost always make one final mistake. What kind of mistake? They come back. It took less than 48 hours for Lauren's prediction to prove true. On a warm Saturday afternoon, Olivia was trimming rose bushes along her front walkway when a taxi rolled to a stop outside her house. Ethan stepped out first, and the confidence from the Cancun photograph was gone. His shirt was wrinkled, his beard grown in unevenly, the expensive sunglasses nowhere in sight. Rachel followed, dragging two oversized suitcases and a designer handbag Olivia had unknowingly financed. Even from 30 feet away, the tension between them was unmistakable. So much for paradise, Olivia thought, setting down her pruning shears and walking calmly inside before they reached the porch. 3 firm knocks. Olivia, I know you're home. She opened the door, keeping the security chain in place. My cards aren't working, Ethan said. I know, you changed the locks. Yes. Rachel stepped forward, arms crossed. You've made your point. No, Rachel, I haven't. Ethan tried the soft approach. The hotel had frozen their reservation. They'd been living out of suitcases for 2 days. Could they please just come inside and talk? Olivia met every excuse with the same quiet, devastating response. I know, not sympathy, not anger. Just the calm certainty of someone who had already seen every number on the page. We're married, Ethan finally said, his patience cracking. So half of everything is mine. Olivia tilted her head slightly. Then your attorney should have no trouble proving that, Rachel tried a different angle. We just need enough to get back on our feet. My retirement savings weren't meant to finance your honeymoon. It wasn't a honeymoon. I understand exactly what you told me. His face slowly lost color. Petition for dissolution of marriage, request for temporary financial injunction, motion to preserve assets. You already filed? I did. You didn't even talk to me. You announced the end of our marriage from a beach. Rachel's confidence cracked next. Who's Lauren? My attorney. You hired a lawyer. I hired the right lawyer. That was the moment Ethan's expression shifted from anger to something closer to fear. He understood, finally, that this wasn't an emotional argument anymore. It was a legal case, and he was losing it in real time. Then Olivia nodded toward the garage, where every box of their belongings sat neatly stacked and labeled beneath the covered driveway. Nothing damaged, nothing thrown away, simply packed with the same care she used wrapping Christmas presents. You packed all this? Rachel asked. I had time. Ethan opened one box labeled family photos. Every framed picture had been carefully wrapped in newspaper. For one brief second, guilt flickered across his face. It vanished almost as quickly as it came. We made a mistake, he said. We can fix this. Then, quieter, I'll end it. With Rachel, I'll come home. Rachel's head snapped toward him. What? Olivia studied him carefully. You didn't leave because you were confused. Before he could answer, 2 patrol cars turned onto the street, lights flashing silently. Officer Daniels stepped out, recognizing Olivia immediately. Mr. Bennett, unless Mrs. Bennett invites you inside, you need to remain off the property. We're still married. Ethan tried one last time. And this property, Officer Daniels said flatly, is currently titled solely in Mrs. Bennett's name. Ethan stared. How do you know that? We've already reviewed the documentation. The taxi pulled away minutes later with Ethan's last box loaded into the trunk. Before it left, he turned back one final time. This isn't over. Olivia met his eyes without raising her voice. I know. But next time, bring your attorney. Court dates scheduled 4 weeks later. Olivia walked into a courthouse she remembered from years earlier. back when she testified in a routine business dispute as an accountant reviewing someone else's mistakes. Ethan sat across the room in a navy suit Olivia had bought him for their 20th anniversary, thinner now. Rachel sat one row behind him, avoiding Olivia's eyes, dark circles under her own. Whatever fantasy the two of them had built in Cancun had clearly collapsed long before this morning. This case is not about a broken marriage. It's about financial deception, one by one. She laid it all out for the judge: the text message, the photograph, the hotel charges, the private yacht, the apartment lease under Rachel's name, the unauthorized transfers, the forged electronic signatures, the IP addresses that traced every single fraudulent approval back to Ethan's own office. She didn't dramatize any of it. She simply read dates and amounts and let the silence in the courtroom do the rest. When Ethan took the stand, Lauren's questions were short, calm, and unanswerable. Did she authorize you to pay that lease using her account? No. Did you tell the bank she had approved these transfers? A long pause. Cancun? She'd learned exactly where the money was coming from and kept accepting it anyway. Ethan, she said, had told her there'd be plenty left that she'd never notice. Ethan turned toward her, furious. You said we weren't talking about that? Mr. Bennett, the judge said sharply. You'll remain silent. The final piece of evidence was a forensic report confirming that Olivia's electronic signature had been lifted from an old, legitimately authorized tax document and reused, without her knowledge, on financial paperwork she had never seen. Judge Whitmore read the report in silence for several long minutes. Then she looked directly at Ethan. This court was initially asked to resolve a marital property dispute. What I now see is evidence suggesting possible financial fraud and unauthorized use of another person's identity. The ruling came fast and absolute. The house remained solely Olivia's. The disputed accounts remained solely hers. The unauthorized transfers were undisputed and would be repaid. And the court, Judge Whitmore said, would be referring the forensic findings to the appropriate investigative authorities. Ethan's shoulders dropped. Beside Olivia, Lauren quietly squeezed her arm, not in celebration, but in reassurance. Outside the courtroom, Lauren allowed herself a small smile. The hardest part is over. Olivia looked back through the doors, at Ethan still sitting beside his attorney. No, she said quietly. Beginning 3 months after the hearing, the house felt different, not empty, but quiet. Olivia had learned there was a difference. Empty was the silence of the first few days, still listening for keys in the door, still bracing for a laugh from the kitchen that no longer belonged there. She changed more than the locks that summer. New curtains in the bedroom. Recliner, donated. Every photograph that made her feel foolish for trusting what had been standing beside her, taken down and slowly replaced with new ones. Her sister at Lake Michigan, windblown and laughing, a watercolor from a local art fair, a photo of her mother holding her at 5 years old. Nothing dramatic, just proof that her life had existed before Ethan Bennett and would go on existing after him. The divorce finalized on a quiet Tuesday afternoon in a conference room that smelled like coffee and printer toner. Ethan's suit hung differently on him now. Rachel wasn't there. She'd left him not long after the fraud referral became real, cooperating with investigators in exchange for her own protection. Olivia never asked for details. Some things, she'd learned, you stop wanting to know, because the knowing won't give you any peace. The final agreement was simple. The house stayed hers. Her retirement accounts stayed hers. Ethan was ordered to repay what he'd taken through the forced sale of business assets and court-monitored structured payments. His construction company, already unstable, collapsed entirely under the weight of unpaid vendors and the ongoing investigation. In the courthouse hallway afterward, Ethan asked to speak to her alone. Ex-wife, Lauren corrected, before Olivia could say a word. I know you hate me, Ethan said. I don't, and it surprised her, saying it because it was true. Hate required a kind of closeness she no longer felt toward him. I ruined everything. Asterisk, he said. Asterisk, I was stupid. Asterisk, stupid is forgetting an anniversary. Stupid is buying the wrong paint color. What you did was deliberate. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? She thought about the beach photo, the necklace, the forged signature, the police on her porch, the courtroom. I already stopped letting you live inside my head. Asterisk, she said. Asterisk, that's all I can offer. That summer, Olivia discovered how extraordinary ordinary things feel once no one is quietly taking pieces of you behind your back, buying peaches at the farmer's market without checking for another unexplained withdrawal, sleeping through an entire night without waking to review bank alerts, cooking salmon for her sister on the patio, the way Ethan had always claimed to hate, and not caring at all. You seem different, her sister told her one evening. I am, asterisk, Olivia said. Asterisk, better. More honest. She started volunteering with a weekend financial literacy program for women rebuilding their lives after divorce. At first, just to help. Then, because she recognized something in the women who showed up clutching folders to their chests. She knew the shame folded inside it. And she started sitting down with them, one bank statement at a time, showing them that freedom sometimes begins with nothing more than a password only they know. By September, her backyard had transformed. Raised garden beds, lavender, tomatoes, a stone path leading to a wooden bench beneath the maple tree. When the carpenter asked what she wanted carved into the back of the bench, she thought about it for days before choosing 5 words. She chose herself and stayed. The first time she sat there alone, she cried, not from pain, but in quiet honor of the woman who had answered a cruel text message with 2 calm words, and then spent every day. Late one evening, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Ethan, can we talk? No apology. Just another door he expected her to open, the way she always had before. She thought about being 22 and believing love meant never giving up. Then she thought about being 45, understanding something far more important, that love without respect eventually becomes a debt you pay forever. She deleted the message. Then she blocked the number. The sky above her backyard had softened into deep blue. Somewhere nearby, wind moved through the maple leaves. Her house glowed behind her, warm, steady. Every lock changed, every room, finally, entirely reclaimed. Ethan believed he'd left her with nothing. And what he left behind was everything that actually mattered. Her home, her money, her peace, her name. The true payoff of this story isn't a single dramatic. It's Olivia canceling the cards before sunrise, while Ethan was still toasting champagne on a beach he thought she'd paid for without ever finding out. It's the locksmith's drill at 3 a.m. It's the manila envelope sliding through a chained door. It's Ethan's face going pale on his own porch, realizing the woman he'd underestimated for 23 years had already built an airtight case against him before he'd even finished unpacking his suitcase in Mexico. The revenge here was never loud. It was never cruel for the sake of cruelty. It was simply the truth, organized, dated, and delivered exactly when it would hurt the most, because Ethan and Rachel had spent months assuming Olivia would never notice. She noticed everything. Olivia's story isn't really about betrayal, even though betrayal is what set it in motion. It's about what happens when someone spends years underestimating the person standing quietly beside them. Assuming her calm meant she wasn't paying attention. Assuming her trust meant she'd never check the numbers. Justice, in this story, didn't come from anger. It came from evidence, patience, and the simple, devastating decision to protect what was legally and rightfully hers. And we want to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever had to choose yourself after someone mistook your kindness for weakness? Tell us your story below. If you want more real, satisfying stories of betrayal, resilience, because we've got so many more journeys, like Olivia's, coming your way. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.